welcome back to another episode of Federico Talks Watches. Now, you guys may have noticed I took a little hiatus for about a week. I had a very, very busy schedule, unfortunately. A lot of private clients, some consulting work, and I didn't have time to shoot a video. But a lot has happened since then. And today I wanted to talk about a topic that you guys will probably, or hopefully, find interesting. And that is 5 watches that I think are going to become future classics, or at least 5 watches that are going to elevate in status and are going to be really sought after, in my opinion. Now, quick wristwatch check. I am wearing the Omega Pre-Ceramic Seamaster 300. Now, you may have noticed I didn't actually own this watch, and it's something that I bought from a member from the Facebook group. Now, I talked about this watch with TGV, and I said that, I really, really love it, but I'm not too sure if I wanted to get it. It wasn't quite unique enough, but I found a great price, and I found a great seller that, I've done a lot of transactions with, and, I couldn't pass up the offer. Omega Seamaster, the Pierce Brosnan version. A review to follow soon, but I can tell you right now that I'm absolutely loving it. The bracelet and the clasp are fantastic, and the wave dial is beautiful in real life. You can definitely tell I'm in my honeymoon period with this watch. But enough about the Omega. Let's talk about the 5 watches that I think are going to become future classics. Now, number 1 is a watch that I've talked about on the channel before, and that TGV has talked about as well, and it's a really, really beautiful piece, and that is the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Ultra Thin Moon, 39 millimeters, part of the Master Control collection. It's an automatic watch, and the dial is beautifully balanced, retro inspired with the moon phase and with the date in seconds. It's an absolute stunner. Personally, I think the steel one is going to appreciate the most. And I think it's pretty well priced at about $9,000 full retail for an in-house moon phase watch. There's not enough moon phases out there today. And when you do find a moon phase, they're usually very, very high-end, and they're part of other complications, such as an annual or perpetual calendar. So I think a moon phase in this price point, made by Jaeger and in steel, will definitely assure that this becomes an absolute classic. And they're pretty sought after. You can't find too many of them on the gray or secondhand market. So this definitely gets a spot on the list. Another watch, which I think gets a spot on the list, is the Tudor Black Bay. Now, people are going to say, well, Federico, which one? The Black Bay Dark, the bronze one, which bezel color? Well, personally, and this is controversial, I'm going to say the red bezel in steel. Yes, this is the most common one right now, but I think bronze and PVD may be a fad, and the black, while certainly rare right now, is a more common color combination. So my pick goes for the red. It's a very, very different looking watch. It's vintage inspired. There are not too many red bezels out there. It's got the great, snowflake hands with that gilt look. And it's Tudor, which has gone through a massive rebranding. And I'm actually going to talk about that in another video. But I think the Black Bay is poised to skyrocket. Yes, the values have slowly been trickling downwards because, the initial sticker shock and the initial batch is, been sold, so you can get them at a discount now. But I think in the future, the fact that it's a Rolex product, because Tudor is made by Rolex, and the fact that it's so different with that red and that gilt hand is going to make this an absolute classic. Maybe not right away, but definitely in the future, I'm putting it on my list of watches to keep an eye on. Now we have a watch that is one of my all-time favorites and may have already hit cult status. The Vacheron Constantin Historique American 1921. What a beautiful piece. Essentially a cushion-shaped watch that's very retro-inspired. In fact, it's inspired from a model from 1921, and it's got a dial which is off-axis. And the reason it was designed like that was because it was a quote-unquote driver's watch. So when you have your hand on the steering wheel and you look down, the 12 should be staring right back at you. Hence the access of the dial. But, this makes it very, very unique. The dial's a great cream color, the font is very old-fashioned, but it's all made in a modern size, and with a great in-house manual line movement. When these first came out, I was actually working retail, and it was impossible to get. I had a ton of people coming in and asking for it, which is rare for a watch of this price point, but we couldn't sell that many, simply because stock was limited. While the demand may not be as strong as it once was, I think in the long run, because it's Vacheron Constantin, because it's so different, and because, in my opinion, it is so beautiful, that it's definitely gonna skyrocket in popularity. And it's gonna be one of those cult classic pieces that demand a premium. At least in my opinion. This was a watch that I had, and I still do have, a crush on for many, many years. And was also featured in the movie Wall Street 2, Money Never Sleeps, which is a shame because that movie was pretty terrible compared to Wall Street 1, which everybody on the channel knows I'm a massive fan of. But nonetheless, I think this watch is definitely going to be a future classic. For my fourth pick, I'm going to go with something very controversial. This is a very Marmite watch. You either love it or hate it, but I'm going to explain why I think it's going to be a future classic. And that is the Rolex Milgauss. Doesn't matter which dial. Now, Rolex has a history of making models that aren't very popular, but end up skyrocketing in value. And that's because, they make the watch, it might not be very popular, doesn't sell well, it gets discontinued, and then 20 years later, people want the Rolex oddity. And this watch fits that bill fantastically. Right now, it's at the bargain basement price you can pick it up for, and it's got all the features of a Rolex oddity. It's got that Thunderbolt second hand. It's got the Faraday cage. It's got those weird orange dial markers. You can even get one with a green crystal. All things Rolex isn't really known for. And the fact that it's not selling really well right now doesn't mean it's not going to sell really well later, or not going to be wanted later. The original Milgauss sold terribly. You couldn't give them away when they first came out. Now they're commanding $20, $30, $40, $50, $60,000 for a steel watch. And I think in a few years, maybe a couple of decades even, it's going to be the same case for the Milgauss out today. Typical 40mm Rolex size, oyster bracelet, so it's got all that DNA, but it's got those twists. And that is what I think is going to make it highly collectible. And lastly, but certainly not least, is a brand I spoke about very recently, and it's one of my favorite pieces made by them. And that is the Lange 1 Time Zone. Now, yes, this is very, very expensive, so it'll never be as collectible as, for example, a $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 Milgauss. But this is a Lange 1, which is the most famous design by the brand, with a world time function. So, it's two things mixed into one. It's got that fantastic movement, and it's got the fantastic, iconic look of a Lange with the high complication. And I think that is going to make it poised to, skyrocket in value down the line. Not to mention Lange has a very, very limited production. I can definitely see this as being, a collector's piece. And some pretty famous people, quote-unquote influencers already wear one. Ben Clymer from Hodinkee wears one. So I'm not saying it's great because Ben wears one, but, people like that certainly help the values of the watches go up. And I think the Lange 1 Time Zone, since it's got that Lange DNA, but it's a little unique, very much like the Rolex Milgauss, is going to make it very collectible in the future. Anyway, guys, what do you think? I know there's a ton more watches that could have made this list. In fact, I think I'm going to make a part 2 at some point, just because, it was so hard to pick just 5. So stay tuned for that. And guys, please don't forget to subscribe to my Instagram account. That's Federico Talks Watches. I'll leave it in the description below so you can get some great watch content on the days when I don't upload. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and like this video if you enjoyed it. That way, you don't miss any content. And I promise I'm not taking a hiatus for at least the foreseeable future, and more content is on its way very, very soon. Thank you so much for sticking around for another episode of Federico Talks Watches, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.